Let's talk about why people tend to start to hate you or start to feel some type of way about you. Isn't always positive once you start, doing your own thing, creating your reality, and turning your attention away from all the things that used to bring you comfort, things that society says you should be seeking to acquire. So let's start with money, because so many people, their biggest hold up towards that life that, is that next level for them is money. They're working the job that they're in because they believe that's the best way that they can provide for themselves and for their family. The moment you solve the money issue, and I'm not talking about solving it as in becoming cash rich. I'm not even talking about solving it as in having some type of passive income stream that is above and beyond all of your expenses. But the moment that you're no longer worried, whatever form it takes for you, the moment that you know that whatever it is that you need is going to come to you regardless, your priorities shift. Instantly, the things that you would have done previously because you were in a state of desperation, you're not going to take it. If you were in a job that was draining, mind-numbing work, of course, you're going to walk away. Your priority shifts. And the next thing that you want, the real thing that you want, is peace. You want to be in a space when you're not working that feels conducive to your peace. You want, whenever it is that you have to give your time anywhere, you want it to be doing something that is conducive to your peace. And anything that disrupts that peace, even in the slightest, is magnified simply because you know that you're not in a desperate position. Now, this peace that you seek, this peace that you're looking to magnify after getting to a point where the money is not an issue, the peace gives you a different perspective on that game that everyone's playing. Now, I want to pause here for a second and talk about this game, because I first realized that there was a game being played early on, as a lot of us do. It can be in our elementary school when we have our first, crush, and you realize that all of the girls like the few guys who all have six-pack abs, or their parents are a little wealthier, and you realize that slowly that, through a series of experiences, none of that stuff really matters. The fact, if you have real emotion for someone, if you have positive intent for someone, that doesn't necessarily matter, because especially at younger age, especially for the guys, a lot of times when guys are coming up and they see that first girl that they believe, is it isn't, guys don't just immediately come up and they're like, oh, well, I gotta have as many as I can. It's usually, that one that they're like, all right, well, this is it. I don't need to travel the world to find her. I found her. She lives a couple blocks away and goes to the same school as me, and I can travel the world with her. I don't need this or that. I can go through whatever kind of suffering I need to keep us happy. I don't need too much. That's how most guys start, base operating system. I know it's different for girls. Maybe they're on a faster track. But for guys, you can end up, getting into some real pain, some real heartache, trying to bypass the game in favor of love. And for me, what I realized early on was that game really, really made no sense for me. It made no sense whatsoever because for one, there was no point in my life where I've been able to see my abs. So for me, when I realized that all the girls, like all the guys who have six packs and essentially are playing the game of how many they can, attract or whatever it is, how much attention they can get, how many guys they can get to love them, what they can acquire from them, how they can move through life. It sucks. And unfortunately, it's a lot of the girls who are told that they're pretty. So it's a lot of the girls who guys at a young age are like, yep, this is that one that I don't need any other, that I can travel the world with, that I can suffer to help provide for, that I can build with. It's those girls. And after a while, the guys who, like me, maybe didn't have a six-pack, maybe see the game for what it is, and they're like, this makes no sense. I'm not interested in this. Eventually, they're like, I thought that type of girl was that girl that, I could travel the world with, that I didn't need any other. But now I see that archetype that I thought existed, it doesn't really exist. Not really. And even if it did exist, I haven't found it. I was wrong. This can be earth-shattering, especially because of a lot of times guys are really young and not equipped to handle the intense emotion that comes with, essentially knowing that, this world is full of beautiful women, and all of these beautiful women want something that, for better or worse, is rare. Something that the governments around the world are actively poisoning their populations to prevent. They want something that systems are put in place to systematically remove from the population to make mating choices easier for a select group of the population. See, when you really zoom out and take a look at the game, then you can see all of the ways that others have attempted to outwit the game, removing competition so that they can do things like have an island where, they're the top, or be in leadership positions in business, have positions of authority, because in every neighborhood around the world, most of the men, or the people that women consider real men, the men who have six packs, are deemed criminals or some type of, or in deep poverty, or the guys who maybe didn't start out with six packs, but would have eventually gained the confidence to go to the gym, change their body, whatever. The system beats that hope out of them. Now, I know that there's a lot of elements to the game, and I'm giving a lot of broad strokes here, but that should encapsulate this game. And like I said, when you hit a certain degree of wealth, peace is a priority. And this game just makes no sense to you anymore. No sense whatsoever. So here you are in a world where systems are literally built to help certain groups of this populace win this game that's being played by removing competition, by degrading morale, by making souls feel like less than. And mind you, I talked about, a lot of the pretty girls. That's not to mention the experience of the conventionally unattractive woman, what her experience is like. So if you, as a person, this video primarily is for guys here. I'm sure the women will get something out of it too. But if you, as a guy who maybe doesn't have the specific characteristics that a majority of the female population is actually looking for, maybe you don't have some radical skill that allows you from an early age to become cash rich. And maybe, just maybe, you find some other way to make it so that that stress and that worry that others have about finances, you no longer have. And now, in this state of peace, you don't see people as competition for you, as something that you need to fight. You don't see people as that anymore. You see them like you. It's people who are trying to navigate a system that, for better or worse, was around long before they came here. Doesn't really make much sense to them. And, causes pain, and the same pain that you felt from that system, you realize that other people feel. You recognize the looks in their eyes, and all you want to do is let them know that there is another way. What I've seen is, at this point, this is where the danger happens, because this is the point where you could end up doing too much for people. This is the point where you can end up going above and beyond and giving out a lot of energy that you'll never get back. And if you don't see now that that's coming, when you get to this point, because this peace that I feel, I want for all my brothers and sisters, and after everything that I've talked about, it's clear it's not from, having a bunch of women around you. It's not from sexual experiences. It's not from having some stockpile of cash. It's just from knowing, who you are and where your real worth comes from. When everything around you has been telling you your entire life that just because of the physical features of your body, or the numbers in an electronic system that is notated under your name, or because the world values a certain talent at a specific point in time that you just don't possess, that you have no worth. When you find some type of worth in yourself beyond all of that, you think all of that shit matters still? Do you? You think you're still tripping off of it? You think you're still letting, the lack of attention get to you, there may be days, there may be moments, there may be brief instances in time, but overall, you're a different person. You move differently. And that difference radiates out of your energy. And it radiates to the point where others see something different about you, but they can't put their finger on it because they're still playing that game and looking at all of those traditional things, their physical features, their talents and abilities that others will instantly recognize and give them kudos for. They see those things. They see their female attention. It could be from females who are giving plenty of attention and getting plenty of attention, but that doesn't matter. But they see that and compare that and say, well, I don't see that in you. What gives you the right to appear happier than I do? What gives you the right to look like you're living life in a better way than I am? And it's not that you are, but unfortunately, that is the state that playing the game puts other people in. And that's why people will seem to hate you or have some type of disdain for you after you stop worrying about the money, stop placating or pushing yourself down because you don't have the attributes that those who are actively playing that game deem as the most valuable. Now I'm going to tell you something else. I'm going to give you some hope here. It's like I said, this peace that I feel, I want for everyone, every one of my brothers and my sisters out there to feel. And I would love, with the more people that begin to feel it, for you all to be able to have connections that you can turn to when you get to this point, to have people who feel like your new family as a result of you getting to this point. I don't want you to have to be alone. So here's the hope. There's more to this world than just that game. There's more to this world than just the mainstream, polished social element. There's more to this world than all of that. There's so much more. In fact, I wouldn't even call the game the tip of the iceberg because it isn't even that much. What it is a little chunk of ice that fell off and drifted a couple of miles away from the whole thing. So we're running into this little tiny piece of ice and saying, we found the hidden gem. And what we found is bullshit. Now, you turning your attention away from the game, that's the tip of the iceberg. And when Source shows itself to you by allowing your feeling of abundance to radiate out into your life in the most miraculous of fashion, that's when you realize that that game, it's not even a game, it's torture. That's the real hell. And there's plenty of people living in it. And their smiles will disguise the pain that they feel, but doesn't make the pain any less real. So here are you, having discovered something true. What do you do with this new you? Who can you be now that you see? Where will you go now that you know? Turning your attention away from the game, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Keep going deeper. You'll find the real meaning of peace that passes all understanding. You'll find a true companionship that goes beyond anything. Like, it doesn't originate from any characteristic that you have, any physical attribute that is good, bad, whatever. It just, this communion, it just is. That's when you realize that you've always been in love. You always were loved beyond measure. You've always had everything that you need. You always were valuable. You always were important. You always were critical to the overall collective. You always were a vital portion, a vital point of perspective for this universe. You have always been. And your experience playing with that block of ice that broke away and drifted miles, and that others are fascinated with and call the game, your experience is just a blip of time. Just a blip in time. And it's past.